Hello, language and life-living friends, and welcome to Creative Teaching and Learning Ideas with Patrick and Gable. I'm Patrick, and this is Master Gable. And today we have an amazingly useful method that we'd like to share that helps students learn vocabulary. The title of our talk is A Neuroscience-Based Approach for Acquiring Vocabulary: Movement, Mindfulness, and Music. So, let's get started, but before we do, let's do a little exercise so that the next few minutes of this explanation will go smoothly and you out there listening will be able to focus and your brain will be totally stimulated. So just follow me. Pretend if you're sitting in your seat that you're running like this, and then go a little faster like this, and then slow it down, and then raise your right hand, raise your left hand, raise your right hand, raise your left hand, and then a little faster. It's okay if you're feeling goofy. Okay, and then slow it down, and then give me a nice big breath, and slowly release. One more time, and slowly release. And the last one with a big heart, and all together, we love vocabulary. Today's program involves the following. First, welcome and exercise, which we have already done. And then second, I want to go over what embodied semantics are, okay? And then next we'll look at what are mirror neurons. And these two elements are very important and pretty much set the foundation for our method today. Then we'll look at what is the relationship to vocabulary of mirror neurons, embodied semantics, and vocabulary. And then I'll introduce the basic components of my head-to-toe method of associations for vocabulary acquisition. And this is also a key component for learning vocabulary that we'll go over relatively briefly. And then we'll go ahead and implement the embodied semantics and mirror neuron activity. We'll do a practice, and I'll have some reflection questions for you and a Q&A. Now, because this is pre-recorded, we really can't do a live Q&A, but if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask, just email me and I will send you a response. Okay, let us begin. So, what exactly is embodied semantics? Okay, this is an amazing idea that really got off the ground in the early 2000s. Two researchers, Aziz Zeda and Damasio, wrote this wonderful report, and they found that, as you see here on the screen, embodied semantics is this idea that the part of the brain, and you'll see here on the screen if you can see where, right where that line is with the frontal lobe and the parietal lobe, right about there is our motor sensory area in the brain. And in that area, they found out that if I grab an apple, that area is responsible for me actually grabbing the apple and taking it to my mouth, okay? Now that same area is also responsible for the concept of that. So let's say somebody said, Patrick, please grab the apple and take it to your mouth and eat it if you like, okay? So that concept, the activity in that part of the brain is being stimulated, hearing those words. Same as if I was to actually take the apple and to my mouth and eat it, okay? So we've got there the sensor motor area, okay? That's where all this activity is taking place. And that's responsible for physical related actions, like I just explained, taking the apple to the mouth, or linguistic concepts, like having somebody giving a command, take that to your mouth, or just about any linguistic command, that activity is going to be located in that particular part of the brain. Now, this is very important for later what we're going to talk about, because you've got concepts working in that part of the brain and also physical activity. Okay, really important. So keep that in mind, right? So again, just in summary, embodied semantics is the idea that in that part of the brain, the sensory motor area, it can respond to both physical actions and conceptual actions that parallel that. So riding a bicycle, physically riding a bicycle, and thinking about riding a bicycle. Okay. Next, what are mirror neurons? Now, this is very exciting. Back in 1992, Giacomo Rizzolatti and his lab were working on motor skills with macaque monkeys, okay? And as the story goes, they were on break, and a monkey was just kind of sitting there waiting for its next little assignment, and one of Rizzolatti's lab workers came in and reached for a piece of food. In some articles you'll read it was a peanut, in other articles you'll read he was eating ice cream. There are different ideas, but essentially he was just reaching for food. Now, that monkey was hooked up, but it shouldn't have really been responding because it wasn't doing any action. It wasn't doing anything itself. But when it saw the lab worker reaching for something, its brain lit up like the 4th of July. And that's what really got this idea of mirror neurons going. So, what are they? These are neurons located in different areas of the brain, but essentially here's what they do. They respond to actions, kind of like our previous one with embodied semantics. So they respond to actions, but they also, this is why they're called mirror neurons, they respond to observing actions. So let's say I watch somebody eating an apple, okay, and I respond to seeing that, okay. If I'm eating the apple myself, these neurons are going to be firing. But even if I watch somebody eat the apple, these neurons are going to be responding too. So that's why we react the way we do during football games or basketball games or volleyball games, and we get all excited, or the way you react when you're watching a romantic movie. It's like you're there. So this whole idea in novels of living a vicarious life through the novel, in reality, it's because of these mirror neurons, because they've also found that there are mirror neurons, elicited mirror neurons. So while you're reading pages, or while you're reading words on a page, those mirror neurons are firing as though you're actually doing it, okay? So these mirror neurons can respond to actions, sounds, and words and images. So they're very powerful. So you can kind of see where we're going now with embodied semantics in this particular area that responds to physical actions and concepts, and mirror neurons. Basically, when you're looking at the world, it's as though you are doing that thing. Okay, you're mirroring that. Okay, so let us now move to Randolph. It's me. Head-to-toe method of associations for vocabulary acquisition. Now, this is a really wonderful method that I've developed over many years, and there are actually 40 components and growing. Actually, now I think there are about 50. But of course, you don't use all of those 50 components in one class. I'm just going to introduce the main 5 here. And this is when we're learning a word, we always go through this first. And this kind of sets the foundation before we bring in the embodied semantics and mirror neuron activity, okay? So let's just take a word like meticulous, okay? And so we give the definition, okay? Now, I never, if you've seen any of my other presentations or videos, you know that I always talk about this, that never, ever in class do I give the definition to the students. I have them elicit the definition through various examples that I give, okay? So I might give, the accountant in the office was very meticulous when she filed the report. The coach was very meticulous in drawing up the lesson plans, or the game plans for the game. So I might give multiple examples for the students, both on the board and then oral examples, and they'll usually guess the meaning, okay? Once we've done the definition, part of speech is very easy. With meticulous, it would be, what part of speech is it? Adjective, right? Okay, so we'd have the adjective out there written on the board, and then verbathy. This is another term I came up with, which basically means word feeling, or how the word feels. Now, it's not connotation because it's a direct, immediate response to the word. So some students might have a positive feel for this word. Other students who aren't necessarily all keen on being careful and cautious might give it a negative. But most of the time, I think students do give it a positive, because I ask them, if you had a company and your accountant was very meticulous, would you feel relaxed or ill at ease? And of course, they're going to say I would feel relaxed because I'm going to have somebody that's very good looking at my numbers, okay? Then, this is where it might get a little odd and strange, you might think, color association. So I'd ask them, what color do you think the word meticulous is? And in the beginning, of course, students are like, what are you talking about, color and words? But this is one of the really strong elements of this method is you're doing all these personal associations. So one student in the past said meticulous, she saw brown, and I said, oh, why brown? And she said, well, I see the backs of old books, and I see meticulously looking at dates, she said, in the books. Or another student said brown because they were drinking coffee while they were studying meticulously, okay? Other students said yellow. Again, they saw the light bulb coming up with ideas that might help them meticulously solve a problem, okay? So it's just a color association. And number 5 there, as you see, is body association. So I have the students ask what part of the body would they associate with the adjective meticulous, okay? And usually they say the fingers or the hands because they're writing, or they're making check marks, or the eyes because they're seeing, or if they're a conductor or a musician, they might say the ears. So again, really depends on the student, okay? So after we do these 5, I'll have the students give multiple example sentences like Anna Maria was very meticulous when she was taking her exam. Eileen was very meticulous when she was studying for her part in the symphony, okay? So I'll get numerous examples from the class, and at this point the students have actually heard the term now 7 or 8, 9, 10 times, and there's new research out there that says a student should hear a word 17 times within a 6-day period. Now personally I think they should hear that within a day for them to really get it, but the research has settled on 6 days, 17 times. Okay, again, this is intermittent. It's 17 times within a 6-day period where they hear it maybe a few times one day, a few times the next, so there's a lot of reinforcement going on, okay? So, implementing the embodied semantics mirror neuron activity, various uses. This is kind of the heart now of our talk today. There are 2 ways that you can do it. Once you've done the head-to-toe method or whatever method you use, then you can either do this activity I'm about to show you while you're teaching vocabulary, or you can do it as a review method. I personally like to use it as a review method because, again, you're doing that spaced out interval where the students get these words, say, on Monday or Tuesday, and then they get reviewed on Friday using the method I'm about to show you, okay? So here it is. Ta-da! You probably do some aspect of this while you're teaching vocabulary, but this is got the title of our talk, as you remember today, was a neuroscience-based approach to acquiring vocabulary, muscles, mindfulness, and music. Okay, so the 7 steps that you see over here, that has the all of those 3 components. So let me explain how I go through this for you right now, and then we'll take a word from a list and we'll do one ourselves, and then you can practice this on your own and practice with your students. Okay, I do recommend if you do all of this at once, it's probably going to appear overwhelming. So I would just, if you, for example, want to use some of the head-to-toe ideas, I would just take 2 or 3 until you're comfortable with it, and then you can use all of them. Same thing with this method. We have 7 components here, but if you just want to do 2 or 3 in the beginning and then add more as you go along, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so let's get started. Number 1, pronunciation. Okay, so we take a term. Let's go ahead and work with our meticulous right now as a review. Okay, so pronunciation. Feeling the term through sound, I have there. Now this is real important. A lot of times I feel teachers and students do pronunciation, but it's just sort of jumping through hoops. Like, okay, let's pronounce the word 3 times, meticulous, meticulous, meticulous. Well, that's not going to do anything, okay? So, well, it might do something in their subconscious, but what I like to do is once they've got that foundation, that's why doing the head to toe is so important, that foundation is already set, so they know the definition, they know the verbethy, and they know how to use it, okay? Now, pronunciation, what I have them do, this is where the mindfulness aspect comes in. So I have them close their eyes and pronounce the word meticulously and consciously 3 times or 4. Okay. Now, if it's a lower level student, you might up that to 5 or 6 times to pronounce it, but three is usually fine for your intermediate or advanced students. So let's pronounce it all together. Now, I want you to feel the actual words. So not just meticulous, but meticulous. Okay, be very mindful when you're saying it. Meticulous, meticulous. And if you want to say a little faster for the 4th time, meticulous. Okay. Now, sometimes I'll ask a student, when you said that, how did that make you feel? Okay, here's where the mindfulness aspect comes in. And they'll say, ooh, well, it made me want to sit up straight and kind of rigid, and I got kind of a sharp feeling through my throat and body, a very visceral response, like I had to pay attention, and I had to pay close attention. I thought, well, my goodness, they've defined the word by describing how it sounds leaving their mouth, okay? And so with that pronunciation, it's very important to have them close their eyes and feel the term, okay? Number 2 is pronunciation and action, acting out the understanding, okay? So here, they're going to pronounce it again 3 times, but each time they pronounce it, they're going to do either use a facial expression or do a gesture, okay? So now you see what's going on, and that first one with meticulous, okay, the brain heard that and it reacted to the linguistic concept. Now what we're doing is we're putting the linguistic concept and the actual action together for the embodied semantics part, okay? So you've got pronunciation and action, so I might say, okay, my gesture might be meticulous, so like checking off, chunk, 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 okay, so meticulous, 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 okay? All right, so you're acting out the understanding of the term. Number 3, now you're saying the word, you're pronouncing it, you're doing the gesture, but you're turning to your neighbor, okay, and you're showing, this is reinforcing the understanding. So now you see how we're using the embodied semantics component and the mirror neuron aspect, okay? So we're using the embodied semantics by pronouncing it and doing the gesture, and the mirror neuron aspect by showing it, okay? So now, my neighbor, maybe she's given me 3 pronunciations and gestures, and then I turn to her and I say, meticulous, 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 okay? So now I've done the pronunciation again, I've done the gesture, and I've shown my partner, okay? Number 4, this is a neat one, creating examples in the mind's eye, okay? Conceptualizing the term. So here we're not writing out examples yet, but I have the students take a moment. Now they're back, they were doing pair work just a moment ago, but now they're back by themselves at their desk. And I have them close their eyes. This is where the mindfulness comes back, okay? And so number 1, we had the mindfulness. Number 2 and 3, we had muscles going on. And number 4, we're back to mindfulness. Now I want them to close their eyes and imagine a scene in the mind's eye of how this term plays out, an example, okay? So examples in the past that students have said is late at night at the library, they're watching a student meticulously underline words in a book, or a student is very meticulous when they underline words in a book, or a banker is very meticulous. It's late at night, the bank is closed, and the banker needs to be meticulous as she counts the money, okay? So they're imagining in the mind's eye, they're creating an image, a scene where they're using the actual term, okay? And that could be variations. It could be meticulous, meticulously. Either one is fine. But again, it depends on what word you're actually teaching that day. But you can use different forms of that, right? Next, number 5, conveying the examples. So sharing the concepts. Here again, I turn to my partner and I say, oh, I saw a banker who is very meticulous check the report, okay? And maybe my partner says something like, oh, Patrick, I saw a volleyball coach and he wanted to make sure that the game went smoothly, and so he was very meticulous when he went over the plays that they were going to try to use in the game against a particular team. Okay, so it might be a little story that they're saying, or it might be a simple sentence. Okay, my mom was meticulous. Okay, but you want creativity in there, and you want to kind of create a scene. Okay, then number 6 is the written examples. That's putting the action and the concept into writing. Okay, so here, we take a little break, and you can either do, like, let's just say that you've taught 5 vocabulary words and you want to review those. You can do all 5 of those, 1 through 5 numbers that we've just done, and then that 6th one you can have them write all the examples at once, or if you want, you can just have them write an example once they're done with each one of these, 1 through 5. Okay, so here they're just writing it I give them a handout with the word, and then underneath it they just give an example sentence. Now, there are benefits of doing this in the moment in class. One, they can probably use their classmates' names or the countries that they come from, and so there's immediate personalization of the material. 2, they'll gain confidence in writing these sentences. And 3, they're not going to use any online resources that might, border into plagiarism or what have you. So I find it best just to have them do those writings in class. Now, the last one is homework, and this is kind of the culminating, exciting part. This is the music aspect. So it says culminating experience through music, enhancing the understanding through emotion. Okay, so here I have them pick a piece of music that they think really epitomizes that term. Okay, so one student in years past loved classical music, and he said that Debussy's Clair de Lune was the representation for meticulous. Another student had said, I don't know if you know the Australian singer Lenka, but she has one song where she does a lot of listening, it calls everything at once, and so this girl thought that maybe that song best epitomized this because it was very meticulous in listing of things and animals and places. Okay, so here again, music is a very powerful emotional elicitor, and so and it brings back memories. It's a very strong thing. And remember, anytime that you're working with emotion, you're eliciting things in the amygdala, the part of the brain that deals a lot with emotion, and that's a great learning center. Okay, so the music, I have culminating experience because that music, if they can associate a song with that word, it's going to help a lot. Okay, I mean, it's almost going to be cemented in there. Now, just a little clarification on this. It can be an English song. If your student comes from France or Istanbul, Turkey, then they can use a Turkish song. They can use a French song. I don't really care if it's an English song. I just want them to be able to equate a word with the song. And again, it can be a classical piece, it could be jazz, it could be folk, it could be a traditional piece, it could be the melody, or it could be the lyrics. Okay, so anything that kind of defines that term. Okay, everybody good? Okay, practice. Let us look at a list. I've got example lexical items. So embrace, glance, come up with, shed light on, breathtaking, meticulous. Okay, so any requests? Come up with. Okay, let's do come up with. All right. So if we go, I'm going to take us back here to the head to toe. So come up with, I would have given numerous examples. Eileen came up with a great plan for the weekend. Mr. Gable came up with a great way to play with Mr. Bubbles, his little brother. So after all these examples, the students say, oh, come up with means invent or create or think up. Is that great? Part of speech, it's a idiom, it's a phrasal verb. Idiom, phrasal verb working as a verb in a sentence. Verbathy, probably positive because you're going to come up with something that's going to be creative. Color association might be blue because when you come up with something, you look at the sky. Body association, probably your head. Okay, so let's go back now to our list. So I'd have the students mindfully pronounce it 3 times. So come up with, and then kind of thinking, the initiation of that. Come up with, initiating ideas. Come up with. Okay, even saying it, come up with, it's like you're creating an idea as you're saying it, okay? 2, pronunciation and action. So maybe this is the gesture, come up with, okay? And then come up with, right? Then number 3, pronunciation, gesture, and showing it. So I turn to my partner and I say, come up with, okay? So she's seeing that again. So the mirror neuron activity is going on, the embodied semantics is going on, and so that term is just being reinforced beyond belief in that part of the brain, okay? And probably other parts that we don't even know about. Number 4, creating examples in my mind, okay? So I close my eyes, and maybe I see a scene where, you know, a mother wants to make a really amazing cake for her daughter's birthday. So we can say the mom came up with a fantastic banana, strawberry, chocolate, pistachio cake idea for her daughter, okay? You got all these colors going on there. And then I would turn to the neighbor and say, hey, I just saw a mom coming up with this amazing idea for her daughter's birthday, okay? And then written examples, I would write, maybe make that relatively simple and say, a mother came up with a great way to make a unique cake for her daughter, okay? And then culminating experience, music, come up with. I could think of so many different songs that have come up with new and unique melodies, but for example, there's a wonderful guitarist from Israel and Russian, it's actually Russian, I believe. And the way he plays the guitar, every stroke it seems like he comes up with, I mean, obviously they're chords that he's learned, but he comes up with so many interesting chord progressions that it's phenomenal. So I would say that I would use Estis Tone, one of his pieces, for my example of come up with, okay? Good, everybody clear? So again, just reviewing, pronunciation action, pronunciation gesture and showing, and then creating examples, and then conveying those examples, writing them down, and then equating a piece of music with the word that you're studying, okay? Reflections. So what, we don't have time to answer these. These are just things I want you to think about, okay? So what are 3 interesting points you learned from this session, okay? Was it the head to toe? Was it the neuroscience of embodied semantics or mirror neurons? Number 2, what are 3 elements from this session you can implement in your classes next week, your lessons next week, okay? Hopefully there's something in here that you can take and run with immediately. And what question do you have about this approach? That's where you can email me if you've got any questions. I'm usually pretty good about responding. And then do you think this method can be used in your own classroom or school? Okay, hopefully if you've answered the other ones above, that last one is a yes. Okay, so Mr. Gable, there he is, Proud Master G. We'll take any questions through, like I said, email, and we'll try to get back to you. Okay. References. Always like to go over these because they're really important. The first one there is the Aziz Zeda Damasio study on embodied semantics, and it's written very well, so the layman can read it and get a lot out of it. I've got the next one there is getting physical, making connections with the body and vocabulary. So that's a real detailed article on using those body associations. And then the next one there is on my head to toe method. And that's the relatively short articles, so that one's only like, I believe, 6 or 7 pages, but there's a lot in there, and it shows you kind of step by step how we do the head to toe method. And then the next 2, there's one that I wrote on mirror neurons, and another one that's real detailed about embodied semantics. And then one about brain boosters, how you can use exercise in the classroom. And that is about it. So we hope this session has been helpful and useful, and you can come up with many wonderful ideas for your students in your classes. Take care, be well, and happy vocabularying.